What is up, down, and sideways, all you beautiful individuals? It is another rep of League Online. Here Mark Williams for a bit of a bang of a weekend recap. We got finals, surprise teams representing now at this year's midseason invitational, silver scrapes. But we begin with what is the actual finals, the main finals of the weekend. The unbelievable. It seems to happen every couple of splits when you least expect it. The boys from Mad Lions, Movistar Koi, whatever name the franchises coming in, they level up to a new stratosphere. And I know people are always saying, seeing these guys internationally, we're a little bit worried, but credit where credit is due. They earned it against both KC and G2 Esports. I'm giving double check marks to all 5 members for the performance this weekend.
Jojopyun wants to return home. He's coming back, baby. Book that plane ticket. Welcome on back. But he has been learning. He's been going through the fires and the flames of the LEC. And you see that with the rest of the Movistar Koi squad throughout this weekend. This is different than a lot of the other times that we've had the opportunity to talk about Mad Lions jumping in, stealing away a split or something like that and getting the international recognition or an opportunity. This is different. This is a Movistar Koi team that battled it out, earned it, grinded against these top teams in Carmine Corp and G2 to make sure that they were going to be the ones making another trip to going to MSI, being the LEC champions of the split.
And this really is giving shades of this previous, when they went on that run in winter last year where, number one, the bot lane was at another level. Alvaro, I think, has proven again that he is the best support in Europe. And we saw Supa carry, best LEC AD carry, better than Deft ever was in his career. Supa popping off in this series. But Mirwin, insane picks, and Jojopyun, most importantly this entire weekend, was the confidence. My man is busting out Kassadin in back-to-back series, and yes, he still did get caught out a couple of times, but we saw interrupting caps on the Talia wall, the plays that we have known and grown accustomed to with this young phenom.
Sometimes it comes off in the wrong type of way. It comes off more as a cocky type of arrogant type of attitude at times. But I think this is clearly a situation where it almost feels like Batman leading everybody through the flooded waters type of situation of, look, we're going to be in some type of territory, some trouble in a playoff type of run, no matter how good you are. But stay behind me. I got the path. I'll lead us through. I can be that tip of the spear. And you see that with this Movistar Koi lineup, taking that forefront, that brunt of any of the type of comments, criticism, trash talk, all these type of things. And there's a lot of that going on, especially when you are facing against Carmine Corp on the other side of the rift with this type of rivalry. So I like that he steps up and brings that angle, because the rest of the team, you mentioned it, that bottom lane, Alvaro, Supa, finding their type of form, and especially Supa in this final series really did find a way to step up and be an extra lethal threat for the team. Mirwin with his crazy picks on the top side. One of the things that we also mentioned was being able to limit what the opponent was going to be doing. And I think he did that fantastic against Kana throughout their series. And then, of course, you add in Elyoya in the jungle, that steady veteran presence now for the team. Really happy that this one was able to be the level up and reward for Movistar Koi.
And obviously, post-game, the interviews, you heard a little bit of shade from Elyoya, saying he loves how hungry JoJo is, and seeing that in his teammates, something his teams haven't had in the past. Okay, a little bit of shade on maybe your boy Frescawi, but yeah, the mid-jungle synergy we saw pretty much from the get-go from these two, just duoing and solo queue. They obviously play styles matched up well, and it took a while. Listen, even from the very first couple of weeks, we saw the highs, the potential from this Movistar squad, but then you'd see them flounder against any of the other competing teams or competitive top of the table squads. The consistency wasn't there, even leading into finals. You heard Broken Blade talking about it in these teasers, that the lows are incredibly low, even if the highs are really high, but we basically cut those lows in half. And especially in that KC series, again, much like the first time they matched up, they were winning games by making split-second macro decisions, when to push, when to force a Baron, when to back, who to back, trading objectives, which is something we didn't see for like 70% of the year so far.
A lot of the things that you want, the things that are good within this Movistar Koi team, are things that you don't really get to teach. They're just innate things, innate choices, decision-making capabilities, equations, all sorts of things. Yes, experience can play into these things, but really with this team and what they had assembled, you're right, you saw all those little good bits, but it was about finding that discipline, finding the consistency to keep that at the top level and be able to sustain that against teams like Carmine Corp throughout a series, against teams like G2 throughout an entire series. And you saw that throughout this playoff run from Movistar Koi. This is a very different time for the Mad Lions organization being at the forefront of the European region. This one feels like a true triumph.
And they and EU fans should feel confident in this version of this team representing internationally. Are we feeling not so great about G2 in this form heading into MSI? I know they kind of turned things around, flip of the dime in this year's playoffs, but now you're looking, Koi really got the bounce back against them. Fnatic was actually not very good. Maybe G2 is still a little bit shaky because that was maybe the worst final series out of Caps that we've seen.
It really is going to depend on, of course, the preparation heading towards the event, and then the initial action that you see from G2, I think, is going to be the one that tells it all. Whether it is a situation as you're sending two real threats towards MSI, or if only it seems like this Movistar Koi one is that prime option from the LEC. I got a feeling we're going to see a little bit of the G2 old magic come through, and we're going to find them being a thorn in a lot of people's sides at MSI.
We have seen them slump before heading into international events, and then they're still even competitive against some of the best teams in the world. So they, of any team in EU, a little bit of grace is thrown the way of G2 Esports. It was a graceful performance on the Rift from our two top squads of the LTA. Cloud9 and FlyQuest, both, again, just proving that not only are they evenly matched, but that nobody else in the league is at that level. But we got the Silver Scrapes, absolute banger in this one. And this was, I'm calling it the tale of the top lane, because surprisingly early on in a fearless best of 5 is when the spicy picks for the Cho'Gath and the set were coming out that were the game changers for Bwipo in those first couple of games. And then Thanatos gets some comfort, especially the Mbessa game, to almost pull off the reverse sweep in this one.
Which I think is another little wrinkle that we are seeing within Fearless Draft, a situation environment that we are in within Riot Games, to try and take a different strategy approach of where you're going to throw in the unexpected pick. Are you going to go with it, as soon as all the top tier meta options are gone, or do you maybe roll it early and then you can take something closer to that meta, closer to that standard line in a later game in a series? Interesting type of way to try and strategize the way through this one. But yes, this one at least delivered for the LTA fans. We got to see both of these teams perform at the highest of levels, push it to that ultimate deciding Silver Scrapes Game 5. It's what you wanted to see between Cloud9 and FlyQuest. I think there's room to nitpick it within that Game 5, of course, the costly one for Cloud9 in some of these situations. But overall, it has got to be that praise, got to be that excitement, got to be that reaffirmation of FlyQuest being a tier above everything else and being that team that you can have confidence in as the LTA.
Yeah, the Game 5 is tough because anytime you're getting to such a high stakes match, both teams are going to be playing a little more tentatively, not worried or extra worried about making any of the big mistakes. And obviously this early fight where they get FlyQuest gets 3 kills is basically like the final push for this whole game. They kind of just are in the driver's seat the majority of it, especially when you have a Ziggs comp and you have that much control over the map. And for all the Ziggs talk we get for APA and Team Liquid, I feel like FlyQuest and even Masu are far and away the best Ziggs team in the LTA.
They're starting to pull away with that one on the pick. And I think one of the biggest things in this individual game, in that individual fight early, is just getting that massive AoE damage on that Ziggs ultimate. And again, being able to capitalize on it in the certain positioning where you are hitting multiple members for big time damage in these ones. That was one of those situations where I thought, oh, maybe here comes the swing back. You're going to get a kill or two in the favor of C9 as well. Didn't happen. That damage comes through and it changes the course of it. And then throughout that game, the positioning, the way to play around a champion like Ziggs and support that one, that's something that we often see falter a lot of the times from Western teams. So to see that come through from this FlyQuest team, you're right. I think they are kind of taking over as the Ziggs masters of the North America region.
Yeah, because I think teams, we underestimate how completely different a play style for Ziggs in the bot lane is. It's all about suppressing the other team so they can't really do anything. Masu had doubled the damage of pretty much everybody, but I think Thanatos on the Gnar, who was just kind of farming damage numbers as top laners do. So it was a full, maybe the most in control game in that fifth game for FlyQuest to make it to finals. Obviously haven't booked an MSI ticket yet because it's only the winner of the split over in the LTA, but maybe the more surprising game of the weekend in North America was the Rebellion taking full force. And I know Team Liquid has looked a little bit shaky as of late, but given a little bit of NRG vibes with your boy Palafox and Contracts coming through with the 3-1 upset. Fudge had a fantastic series, and talking about Ziggs performances, APA gets it in one of the decisive games here and has not much impact.
No, and this was a tough series to watch in this one because of having hopes for Team Liquid. But if you are making mogul moves out here with Ludwig, you're jumping up and down about Shopify Rebellion's resurgence. Yes, this team that has been built up of kind of Frankenstein sort of parts around the LTA, LCS of the past to figure out and try and get something good. It is working. The electricity is flowing through all the different body parts from the graveyard, and it is going through out on Summoner's Rift and being that Frankenstein's monster out there and showing some fearsome sights to its squad like Team Liquid. I think everybody really stepped up in this one. I think obviously given the player of the series was Contracts, he's the first one that you'd be looking at for what he was able to do and how he was able to set up his teammates. But I think the stability that you're also getting from guys like Fudge, like Palafox in the mid lane, these matter for its squad like Shopify Rebellion.
And, you know, Fudge being confident enough to pick champions like Rise and carry games, Aatrox in this series. The first couple of games are won in wild fashion. You have, you know, the Palafox face check with the Ahri where everyone's screaming at him, and then wait, he's actually a genius for interrupting all these recalls. And then game 2 is a 50+ minute come from behind win for Shopify. So talk about clutch factor in the genes, and it was on full display in this series.
Yeah, and these are things where you can absolutely, you know, you criticize and nitpick and get perfectionism and say, I don't want my team to be in these type of situations. Okay, sure, go enjoy being a fan of Gen G and their perfection run. That's about pretty much it that you're going to have in that type of category for choice. Because everybody else, you got to go through these type of moments, and to have a squad like Shopify Rebellion, where you have some of these veteran players that have been around various LCS organizations, various levels of success within it, getting into this type of a playoff run together, peaking at performance and communication. This is a Shopify team that we can't rule out at this point within the playoffs and what type of damage they might be able to cause.
And listen, with Seos in the bot lane bringing the LATAM angle, Ludwig obviously as a face, Shopify is doing some heavy lifting when it comes to viewership in the LTA. So it might actually be better that they're heading into that top 3 with Cloud9 and FlyQuest. But now for TL, obviously splits over going into split 3. I mean, Yuji, you want to give this guy more time to cook. I'm glad he got to at least start every game in this series. I think the first foremost potential roster move heading into next split, it's probably APA.
I think it's an unfortunate reality that you have to take one of these hard looks at yourself as an organization and say, what is our core? What are the pieces that we can't be without moving forward? What do we build upon? Type of questions. And I think the answer for Team Liquid has very simply been, we need to have the veteran presence of core JJ in that bottom lane. And then the other two pieces were, well, you flesh it out with a veteran or whatever. And then we've got our two young stars that are building up in APA and Yan. Now, Yan certainly has been one of those ones that has delivered along this path, and APA has delivered at times. throughout this one. But it's become a discrepancy over the course of this year, and it has become a significant problem now for this team that I think you do need to identify, whether it is continued resources, investments into APA. He's going to get better. There's a bounce back. You can learn whatever. Or if you need to cut ship and you need to find another option in that position.
And we heard from him, kudos to him for doing an interview after this series, talked about there were tryouts, not just for jungle, kind of coming into this split. So I feel like it's going to be more of the same for split 3 and maybe some other sweeping changes coming the way for Team Liquid. We had an MSI tryout in the LPL. We decided to have a little winners final Monday action. And yes, of course, AL and BLG also giving us some silver scrapes action. And let me tell you, sometimes this fourth game, we're going right to game 4 where BLG is putting up more than a kill per minute, and this game seems to drag on forever. And I really think the mentality of anyone's legend when you're getting kind of beat down in this game, you might already be thinking about and planning game 5 and actually shift getting kind of dumpstered into a mental advantage, because that's what it felt like the way this team bounced back in game 5.
I love it, because this is something that you do see within traditional sports in various sorts of ways of finding that, you know what, this one's done, this one's lost, this one's a blowout. That doesn't mean give up all of a sudden, whatever, it's useless. You can find avenues to improve, to change, to test things out. All sorts of practice still available within actual game time situation. I think the recognition, the presence of mind to take that type of approach within the game and immediately step into that mode of, okay, here's what we then take from that into the next game as you move on. That is some real strength, and absolutely one of the best things you love to see within competition is that ability to adapt like that. Love that from our boys at Anyone's Legend.
And excited to see this squad at MSI. Obviously, some of the guys will be making their international debut, but AL, I mean, you look from the start of the split to the end, probably the most consistent LPL squad, because BLG did have that slow start, but obviously there's still a shark lurking in that lower bracket as AL goes to the finals. The other couple LPL matches, we had LPL fans feeling really good that AL are booking their ticket, and internationally probably feeling really good that Top Esports will not be representing, because they dropped an absolute dud in Game 5 against World Elite.
Oh, and it really hurts this one, because that series was actually pretty good, had good back and forth all the way to that point, and then it is just a very uninspiring Game 5 performance from this Top Esports squad. So yes, I think a lot of people are taking that sigh of relief that they don't have to have that equation, have that worry, have that drain of Top Esports at an international event, and possibly deflating any type of hopes for the LPL. Bounce out by Weibo in that Game 5. Yes, moving on through. Of course, BLG, as we know, is going to move down into that loser's bracket situation to be the other boss waiting there. But man, oh man, the LPL playoffs always deliver.
Yeah, and you've got the hype train going now for the big sweltering fan base of Invictus Gaming coming away with the big win. The Shy gets to have a solid Jace performance. JJ kind of, the Baron steal is what really steals this series back to them for Weibo. But really, at least 3 of these games, Rookie absolutely gaps Xiaohu, and seeing the ebbs and flows of Rookie. Is he washed or is he a GOAT? We just continue to ride that wave.
We're always riding that wave, and whether that wave is continuing to go up is going to be the question for IG, because if they are continuing to ride, the peak, that, arcing momentum of that surfboard wave, you can stay on top of that thing, ride it all the way down into the beach. It's going to be a great time, and that beach is right on the coast of Vancouver for MSI here in Canada. Otherwise, if you can't, you're tumbling down, you're hitting the coral down below, and that coral down below, well, it's the rest of the teams you got to run through in the LPL in these playoffs. If Rookie continues that form, things keep going well for IG. Otherwise, I don't see them getting here. As much as I love the rest of this team with Gala, with the Shy and everything else, it really has been whether Rookie is able to have one of these performances or not.
And, similar to Koi, we've seen some very high highs out of IG this split, and some incredibly low lows. So can they even that out a little bit, like the Spanish boys did over in the LEC? If you're more of a land type of fella for a ride, might I suggest tickets aboard the KT Rolster coaster, because not only did this squad just come in, completely dismantle D plus Kia in a rematch from their tiebreaker, and then dismantle Nongshim to advance to the next round to go 6-0 to kick off their playoffs. But Mark, this team has won 10 of their last 11 series, and that only series loss was a competitive Game 3 that nearly ended the perfect season out of Gen G.
I'm keeping the same status quo. We're not excited about KT Rolster. Things have been good for this squad. They've been moving on through, keeping the pace in the LCK, taking care of this King of the Hill style that they're going through in these playoffs. And as I'm making sure I'm not getting excited, I don't want to mistake that for not being appreciative, not recognizing that this has been a turnaround for this team. And a lot of it, I still put on BDD's incredibly broad shoulders. My boy, I don't know how he fits through any doors in Korea to get through, because he is carrying all 4 other members of this team through with him. To be fair, those other 4 have lost a little bit of weight. They certainly are contributing a little bit more, a lot less costly type of movements and things like this for the squad of KT Rolster. Exciting times in the LCK to have them moving on up through these playoffs like that. I think they are one of the options that does provide that interesting, they could possibly do it type of wrinkles into this type of one. Of course, the next roadblock is the destined Telecom War showdown against T1.
Yeah, but I mean, as a fan base, that's what you want as you head to that next round. That's going to be, bigger venue at Busan for some of these finals. And, we were very critical of him throughout the split. So give credit where credit's due. Doc Dom, I did not have on my bingo card. My man getting 1v1 highlight reel outplays all of a sudden.
I didn't have him coming back at all at any point in this
he
one.
Was getting
for this
subbed
team.
out. Remember, we had half the challenger team for KT at times this split.
So very impressive to see him get that bounce back. Yep, one of those situations. Got to tip your cap. Got to give that acknowledgement over to him.
Full steam ahead to another tilt in the telecom war as 2 trains go to collide. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you beauties. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.